Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Airing It Out podcast. It's Dustin Marin, your host as always. Today, my guest is Josh Booty, MLB and NFL Analyst. What is going on, Josh? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, Dustin. Appreciate you having me again. I know we did this a month or two ago, and that was a lot of fun. So to be back on the show, especially after the college football season's over and the NFL playoffs are in full swing, I love it. This time of year is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. At least we don't have the same amount of ball games, but at least we can really define the college playoffs and really see who is the best of the best on that front, at least, you know?
Yeah, it was an unbelievable run that Alabama had. This year was so different than most years. There were no non-conference games. In the SEC, they had to play 10 conference games. That's never happened before. Alabama was able to win them all. Of course, win the college football playoff game and then win the national championship in really fine fashion. I mean, Mac Jones and Najee Harris and Devontae Smith, and to watch Jalen Waddle come back, the receiver that was injured in the middle of the year, to come back and play a few snaps in the national championship game was fun to see. Of course, my old football coach at LSU, Nick Saban, now with his record-breaking seventh national championship trophy that he's been able to hoist into the air. It's pretty amazing to see what he's done in his career, and I'm super happy for him, man. I know how much work he's put into it, and you can see the product on the field every Saturday at Alabama. I think Steve Sarkisian, of course, the Southern California guy, did a great job dialing up plays all season long for that offense, but they were dynamite, a lot like LSU was 2 years ago with Joe Burrow. I mean, they were unstoppable and were breaking records and, had tons of players that were first-team All-American. Alabama just always reloads, and it's fun to watch. I know people are probably tired of Bama rolling, the tide rolling every year, man, but that's what they do, and it's because Saban works his butt off in recruiting, and they've always got a great scheme and a terrific team.
I'm always like you. I know everybody gets mad when you see the same guy, there, whether it's a coach or a player or a team, but I'm like, stop them then. I mean, it's not their fault that they're committed to excellence. I don't know why. It seems like we're so, as a culture, we're so wrapped up in the underdog that we don't give the kudos to the teams that actually put in all that effort. Because like you said, you just don't show up, right? Saban has to do this year in and year out and train guys, and so many dudes leave to the NFL. I feel like, people like him, and we're going to bring him up too, like Brady, they just don't get the love because they're always there. It's so strange.
It is. It's like they're culture builders. I mean, Belichick did that, and no matter who was in the lineup, especially on defense and at the wide receiver position for Brady for all his years, I guess at the end of the year, the result is still the same, and that's a winning season. A lot of times it's double-digit wins. I mean, and it's the culture that they created in the NFL. You can see teams, in really every professional sport or college arena that just dominate every year. And a lot of it has to do with tradition and fan base and different things. But at the end of the day, the Steelers and the Patriots recently, they're always going to put an amazing product on the field. And the Yankees have always been like that. The Red Sox, for most of its history, they're always going to put a good product on the field. The Dodgers, especially last year, but those teams, and a lot of them are in big market places too because they can attract free agents. So there's so many dynamics to it. But you have a good head coach, a good staff, top down, you draft well, you're going to have a good team if the guys play hard and you got some leadership. So I think a lot of those coaches, their job is to draft and bring guys along and create great leaders and great leaders amongst in the clubhouse, amongst the guys in the locker room, and that's what those teams do year in, year out, man, and it's fun to watch.
Well, I find it even more interesting because I think that somebody who's been kind of doing that for a while, but now is starting to get the credit is Bruce Arians, right? And what he did to Tampa in such a short time is truly, truly impressive. And now you bring in Byron Leftwich, and now Tom, and these guys seem to be in sync. How impressed were you with their performance past Sunday against the Saints?
Man, I love watching them. I've known Bruce Arians since I was a high school kid. He recruited me. He was at Mississippi State under Jackie Sherrill, which is a legendary coach there in Starkville for many years. I ended up playing against him when I was at LSU, and then ended up playing under Bruce for 3 years in Cleveland, backing up Tim Couch. And it was the last time the Browns had made a playoff run in 2002. We actually got beat by the Steelers, and Bruce Arians was our coordinator, and Todd Bowles, who's the defensive coordinator, was our defensive back coach at Cleveland. So I got to be around both of those guys for a few seasons, and what I like about BA is, his coaching style. And I know Leftwich has been there with him. He's been in Arizona with him, and he's probably got similar styles. I haven't been around Byron, but I just like the way he attacks defenses. Even like his daily life, he attacks life. He attacks the media. He's full go, and I love that about him, because he's in your corner. He might at practice. He's tough on guys. Like, he's tough on Brady. He said some stuff this year, like, you know what, Brady, he didn't make the right read. He made mistakes, and even though he is the GOAT, those guys. It's still a game where there's great players on the other side, and he understands football so well. He can get guys in good spots, and I think they're going to play well this weekend, to be honest with you. It's going to be a heck of a game now. I mean, you got to go up to Lambeau in 20-degree weather, and late January, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this is unbelievable. But Brady, the quarterback of the franchise, the CEO of the franchise, being the quarterback, he's played in cold weather games, man. These guys have confidence that he'll play well up there, and that's what I can't wait to watch this one, because Aaron Rodgers is having the best year of any quarterback in the National Football League, and you got Brady, who has got a new lease on life with Bruce Arians and this team with all those weapons. If Evans is healthy, Godwin, Millar, AB's playing well, Gronk, Brady, all these guys. I mean,
Stacked.
They had O.J. Howard.
Stacked.
I mean, it's nuts, man. It's so nice, and as good as I do, because you watch all this ball on the weekend. But man, Tampa is playing good. Their defense is lights out. The linebackers run to the football. They shut down Green Bay last time they played, and Aaron Rodgers came out early in the fourth.
Bad. They shut them down.
Yeah,
it's impressive, man.
I think they got a real opportunity here to go take this thing, and I don't want to be one-sided, but Tampa would love to play that Super Bowl at home, and they get it in Tampa this year. And what a sight that would be to watch Brady and the boys at home in the Super Bowl.
Well, it's crazy. I was just telling my friend, I'm like, TB plays for TB and might be playing in TB. If that happens, holy smokes, this guy, I mean, are we beating a dead horse by just being awed and enamored with how amazing this dude is? I was telling somebody the other day, I mean, he used to look handsome as fuck, but he's been in the league for 20 years. He's been playing since I was a 20-year-old, and the guy doesn't look like he's missed a step. If anything, one could argue he looks better than he has in the last few years.
Dude, he's won playoff games in 3 decades. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do. But his mind is right, his body's right. He's still throwing lasers. He's with a great team. If he didn't have great players around him, he'd have a hard time. Like last year, they didn't really have weapons in New England, and I think that's what they didn't bring any new weapons in the offseason. It kind of hurt probably that relationship. With him and Belichick and maybe Kraft a little bit, but he's got weapons now. They're airing it out. He knows Bruce likes to throw the football, so that's why he went down there. But man, he's having another phenomenal year, and if he can get to the Super Bowl, I mean, it's just another big old notch in that belt that people aren't ever going to be able to surpass.
One thing that I love that Trent Dilfer talks about a lot is quarterbacks who perform within muddy pockets. And I've never seen anybody do it as well as Brady, with a little shuffle, a little slide, stepping up in the pocket. You, as someone, you were just telling me you got kids and we got coaches trying to teach these young guys. Is Brady something? I know we're moving to the running quarterback and the RPO and offenses are changing, but if you are trying to be just a dynamic quarterback within the pocket, is Brady the person you should be studying? Because the guy, I mean, he knows where everybody is.
Yeah, he's so gifted mentally, and he's so prepared, and he's a bright, bright guy, and he's not fazed by the rush, and he has no fear, and he understands his outlets, and he understands his reads, he understands defenses, he understands numbers. Really, football is a numbers game. When you talk about blitzing linebackers or blitzing secondary players and the front three or front four and how teams every week is like studying for a midterm test, right? For offenses and quarterbacks when they have to go play another opponent. And what he does so well week in, week out is understand the strengths, the tendencies. He's brilliant, right? So he understands what he's supposed to do offensively. That's kind of in the back of his mind. He's already figured that out. Now it's what are they going to try to present to me on every Sunday basis? And then so he goes into that film room and watches film and understands and critiques at another level than a young player would, because he understands exactly where his guys are at. He understands protection so well, and then he can go in there and dissect. Okay, if they give us this look or that look or this look or that, that's rushing 4, 5, 6, 7. I got to protect myself, or I've got to throw hard, or I've got to do some things to dish the football, or I might And then when the rush does come, he has such a presence and a feel for the pocket that he does. He just scoots one way or the other and then throws a dart, whether it's downfield if the safety's crept up, or if they're all back, he'll throw the short crossing route. And then he uses the tight end. He always has. So, and the running backs in the pass game, and that's given him, he has total feel for what he's doing, and that's why it's so fun to watch. And Drew Brees is a lot like that, and Rivers is a lot like that, and Roethlisberger's like that, but Brady's just done it at a higher level than any of those guys over time when it's nut-cutting time in the playoffs, and he does it year in, year out. And I got so much respect for the guy. It's unbelievable, because he's 43 years old, and he's sitting back there, and those guys are humming, and they're coming, and you better be ready. And every week he adjusts and makes plays, and at the end of the year, you got, man, getting grief, he's had an unreal year, and it's just he does it all. He just does it consistently.
So speaking about splitting greatness, we just talked about some other guys. Now Rodgers has an opportunity to play Brady. There's a potential he might not win this game. If Rodgers doesn't win another championship, in your opinion, does that tarnish his legacy, or has he done so many amazing, miraculous Hail Marys that we'll always remember him as being one of those great QBs?
Yeah. Well, he's definitely one of the best. He's top 10, in efficiency and touchdowns to interception ratio and yardage, games with a lot of touchdowns and yards accumulated. The quick release, we see how just amazing he is. He sees the field, his vision, he can scamper. He's one of the best ever. No doubt if he wins or loses this game. I think if he does win this game and goes and wins another Super Bowl or plays in another, that really helps him in his case of being a top 3, top 4, top 5 all time. But right now, there's so many guys that stand in front of him, I think, that have won, the Montanas of the world. I even think Terry Bradshaw, even though
talk about Terry all the time, yeah.
Yeah, 4 out of 4 Super Bowls. John Elway, I think, may be the most athletic, most gifted, super strong quarterback stud of all time, to be honest with you. He would be my first pick overall if Brady was, not in the draft. In an all-time draft. Elway was incredible. I asked Bill Walsh one time because I had probably a lot like the questions you have. Would you take Montana or would you take Elway? And this is pre-Brady. This is back when he was at Stanford and I was getting recruited in the 90s. And he goes, it ain't even a question. I'd take Elway over Montana any day of the week because of what he can do on the football field. And he loved Montana, but he knew Elway was just out of this world gifted. And that's kind of what Mahomes is, for the Chiefs. He's out of this world gifted. How do you not say he's the best? He is the best. Aaron Rodgers just doesn't ever make mistakes. He only made 3 mistakes all year, 3 picks, 40-something touchdowns. 2 of them were against Tampa. So, maybe Tampa has his number.
Yeah, that's impressive once you start to compound the numbers and then, evaluate these guys. I think it's amazing to have, whether it's Patrick Rodgers or Brady in the same conversation with, Bradshaw and some of these other greats. It's really impressive. So now, speaking about more of those greats, Breeze didn't look so good. This is the second injury over 3 years. Obviously, he's contemplating retirement. What are your thoughts? Do you think that he has enough in the tank to maybe bring one more year, or should he kind of walk off into the sunset?
I would like to see him come back one more year because he is the New Orleans Saints in my mind. I mean, him and Sean Payton do such a wonderful job together. Michael Thomas was banged up a lot this year, and Kamara was hurt 3 or 4 games at the end of the season. And you'd like to see him. You'd like to see him come back because he's such a fixture in New Orleans. And I like Drew. I've known him since he was at Purdue, and we came out into the draft the same year, and he's just a fine dude, man. I love his competitive nature. You hate to see guys like that retire, but he's at the age where, he had the injury. He set out the month because of the broken ribs, and he had 12 of them or something. And so, his body's becoming more fragile, and he's got all those boys that he wants to raise and have fun with and coach them. And, so life happens too. And so, for selfish reasons, you want him to be in a Saints uniform. You want him out there on Sunday. But at the same time, it might be the end because he's losing a little bit velocity on his fastball. And, guys have got to get open for him a little bit. It's got to be a little cleaner for him. And, back 5-10 years ago, man, he could slice and dice with the best of them. And you just hate to see guys like that get old and retire. And it happened to Manning. It happened to Marino. It happened to Elway, Montana, all the great ones. And Drew's one of those great ones.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I also agree with the fact that kudos to Sean Payton and Drew Brees for truly turning around that organization, because before they got there, it was a little bit of a mess, and I'm glad that they were able to at least, pull the ship in the right direction to make the New Orleans organization be an organization that you would want to play for and emulate and do things of that nature. Speaking about another guy who has more in the bottom part of the hourglass than the top part, what are your thoughts on Phillip Rivers? Is he another guy that's probably, maybe time to hang up the cleats as well?
I think so. I mean, he's got the biggest family of all of them, right? I mean, all the kids that he's got. I mean, he needs to go home and relax and hang out with those kiddos. But, same thing, arm not quite what it was, 40 years old, been there, done that, now tried another organization, didn't, of course, win the Super Bowl, but had a successful year. I mean, playoff team. I talked to Norm Chow. I've got stories about most of these guys over time just because I've been around some of them and some of their coaches. Norm Chow coached my brother at USC and recruited me when he was at BYU back in the day. Steve Young and all those guys were back there. He coached at NC State, and he said Phillip Rivers is the smartest football player he ever coached. And I was like, wow, that's saying something because he's coached Ty Detmer, Steve Young, Carson Palmer, Leinart, all of them. And he said, it ain't even close. The Phillip Rivers is brilliant. And, so you could tell when he's on the football field, because his arm strength ain't great and his anticipation and his knowledge of the offense get him in great situations throughout his career. And he's been able to dominate teams offensively because of those things, just understanding what he's supposed to do. We talked about Brady earlier in the pocket, understanding defenses and what he's got to do to dissect the defense. And there's no one better than Phillip Rivers. He's done it. He's probably a Hall of Famer, and we're going to watch him get that award one day. I really do think he's one of the best to ever play, and I hate that he never won a Super Bowl, but neither did Marino. Some guys,
it's hard.
Just don't get it.
It's hard.
It's hard.
I was talking shit about us couch potatoes the other day, and we're so brutal, and none of these guys have played it down in their life, right? And you're just so quick to throw around the word bum and all these other things. But I was saying to somebody in preference to Rodgers, is like, man, to win one is so difficult. To do two's got to be even harder. And just the level of competition where you're at mentally, you also got 42 other guys you got to get there mentally too. And we all got to gel in the same page. But yeah, no, being down in San Diego when they were down here, watching him for so long, his anticipation for the long ball has just been awesome. And I tell you, everything they did right with the Colts this season. I think Frank Wright did an amazing job with those guys up there. You got the defense purring. They arguably have the best offensive line in the league. They probably have arguably one of the best offensive line and offensive linemen. I mean, they got it all good. So it looks like they're one QB away from continuing to compete. And all of a sudden, the South is good, right? I mean, now you got Trevor Lawrence maybe heading to Jacksonville. Urban Myers is going to go there and follow him. Tennessee, they're starting to click. And you got the Colts competitive. I don't know what's happening in Texas. What are your thoughts on these guys potentially alienating Deshaun Watson?
I know. You would think that would be a good place for Deshaun Watson. People are talking about New York Jets, or they're talking about some of the other places out there in the league. I think that a place like Indianapolis would be great for Deshaun Watson because he's a veteran. I mean, this guy understands what he's doing. He's a winner. We all know he can produce at a very, very high level, coming off his best offensive season to date. I know he didn't make the playoffs, and they didn't have a successful year as a team, but the guy can play football. So whoever has Deshaun Watson is going to be super lucky. I just don't know if I'm the Jets and I got the new ball coach, do I go after Deshaun Watson or do I draft a guy like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields? Because those guys are young and got the fresh legs too, and you can build a team around that. And it might take those teams several years to get to where they're really a playoff contender. And, that's in the prime of Deshaun Watson's career, so you got to look at really everything else, all the other pieces that are in play on your team, and say, okay, if we get Deshaun Watson, is he really that last piece of the puzzle, or is he the first piece of the puzzle? If you're going to go get a first piece of the puzzle, I go get a Justin Fields, and then I got 3 years to build, let him get some real experience, and then bring some other guys in, draft other guys and bring them up, bring them along. In Deshaun Watson's case, he'd be better in Indianapolis because he can go fit in right now and they're a playoff contender. That's just what I think about those situations.
No, I think that's absolutely brilliant because, sometimes as Jets fans, you can't see the forest from the trees. And I know getting a guy like Deshaun Watson would just light you up. But again, like you said, if it's the first piece, I mean, you don't want to waste 3-4 years of this guy's awesomeness while you worry about the offensive line and getting him receivers. And then now we got to get chemistry with those guys. And then maybe we hit on a running back here or there. I mean, that's a lot. And the NFL is so tricky. It looks easy in the sense like you get this guy, this guy, this guy. But to hit on those guys and to train those guys, is difficult as well because you got to have great coaching. As we've seen, most of these teams, the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator are coach candidates. So it's so many gelling moving parts that I'm glad that you brought that up because I know a lot of people are clamoring for it. But now that you said that makes sense. We have a lot of work to do, and I don't think Watson is going to be the slam dunk answer for that. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
I was thinking about this when you were talking about how tough it is. In college, you don't have to play up every week. You can get by sometimes if you're a great team. In the NFL, you have to play up every week, and then there's more games. And so if you don't have a solid offensive line, it's going to get exposed. If you don't have a solid secondary, it's going to get exposed. If you don't have a great run game or balance in that offense, it's going to get exposed. And so in the NFL, you have to play up every game so that you don't get exposed. In college, Alabama's going to play a bandy. They're going to play a non-conference game. They're going to play a weaker opponent in the conference. They are going to play some great teams, and those games. But you kind of circle them on the calendar. In the NFL, you cannot let up 1 second, and that's why being the best at that level is so tough, and that's why we talk about Brady and Breeze with such high esteem because. And it was like that for all the good ones. At the end of the day, you look up, they got double-digit wins at the end of the year, and they're in the playoffs. And it's every year. And those are the best of the best of the best. And, you got to be hungry. You got to have the right personnel. There's just so much to it.
It's insane, bro. You could literally have a team who hasn't won a game play a team who hasn't lost a game, and they come in fucking with their ears pulled back and ready to rock, and you just go, what happened? Who is this team? But we forget that these are all pros, plus this is the best of the best, right? And I feel like people are so, like I said, they're quick to throw that word bum around when we don't really understand how much work it goes into it, from practice on Wednesday and Thursday, from being on meetings Thursday and Friday, from getting everything ready, from keeping your body right, from not getting injured, from taking care of it. And I mean, like you said earlier, Brady is the guy who has figured out all of that, right? Where every week we know how to do the sports science, we know how to do the studying for the the college exam, and then we know how to do it physically as well. So it's hard. It's probably that's why I think the NFL has risen as that dominant sport, because there are so many moving parts, and you have 11 guys on one side and 11 guys on another side, and you just, I mean, look at Deshaun Watson. You could literally throw for 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and still lose, and still be bad, and still be on a bad team. When you take that same number on a good team, and you guys are going to the playoffs, and you're maybe, competing every season, and you're in championship games. So, it's definitely a slippery slope in the sense of how easy people might conceive it to be. Speaking about that, right, and coaches and moving parts, I don't know if this is true. Has Russell Wilson never received an MVP vote, bro?
It's a crazy. I was thinking about that before the show, because you mentioned it in your notes, and I was like, you know what? Is it because he plays in a the Pacific Northwest, where the market's a little different up there? It's like, it's kind of like San Diego. If you're a Padre or a Charger back in the day, it's hard to get votes because you're just kind of left out there in on an island, like you're in Hawaii or something. And it's like, you know what? But Seattle's been really good, and I think they've been deep in the playoffs. They've been to Super Bowls. They've won Super Bowls. They've got a head coach that's won Super Bowls. It's a high-profile guy. And so for him not to win an MVP or to get votes is almost crazy to me. And maybe this year, because their defense was not in the mix. It's kind of like Deshaun and Houston. He could have the best year of his life, but if you're 6-10 or you're not doing what Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes are doing, then you're just not going to be in the mix. He was in the mix early, and then they suffered late in the season, and he threw a few more picks, I think the last month of the regular season, than he did the first 3 months of the regular season. So I think, it was just a culmination of that at the end of the year. He wasn't playing as hot as he did in the beginning, and sometimes we forget those guys in the Pacific Northwest or, Southern California sometimes.
No, it's true. I mean, I think early on this year, you were one of the first people to be, really, really excited about Kyler Murray, and we forget about that guy, right? Like, it's so weird. If it's not a KC or New England or now a Tampa or New Orleans or Green Bay, you get lost in the shuffle. And these are the teams that every season, including the Steelers, if you play 10 out of 10, they'll be there 8 out of 10 years. You know what I mean? And so when you have these amazing organizations, and also too, the writers have the bias, right? They're working on stuff, and they're watching the premier games and the premier matchups. So I'm sure that their viewpoint's a little skewed because, like you said, you're not seeing Seattle every season, not only not in the playoffs, but in the championship game. So you might lose a little bit. I just think that Russ is just so phenomenal as an athlete. He's been compared to friend Tarkenton, especially when he moves east to west on the stands looking downfield. I thought DK played great. I think he's going to emerge for them moving forward. And I think Tyler Lockett is just fantastic. I find it fascinating how we've moved away from the prototypical 6'5" guys who jump out the building and have 4.4 speed, but now we take guys kind of more in the Wes Welker, Julian Edelman kind of tree, and then put those guys move out wide, you know what I mean? And move them around, and they're able to make more of a problem. I wanted to ask you a couple more before we get out of here, because there's no way I can ask you. How impressed were you with Cleveland's season this year? Because they did. I mean, I've been banging on my chest, bro, the whole time. Nobody was listening, but I'm impressed. I'm super impressed.
I was too. I think it was because of their run game and because of their balance and the confidence that Baker played with, because he had that at his disposal. It's like when you got to carry the whole thing on your back and you got to throw the football, week in, week out in shootouts or matchups when you don't have balance or run games is very difficult for a young quarterback. And this year, Chubb was amazing. Kareem Hunt was amazing. That offensive line was really good. The play action game was good. And then now it kind of opens everything up where he gets the ball to the right guy. They score points. Now Baker looks like the man, right? And that's how football's supposed to be. That's how the Patriots have done it over the years. They mix it up. They run the ball well. They do screens and gadgets well. They do play action well. They use the tight end well. They had all the pieces. And even though Odell got hurt early in the year, they had enough pieces and enough of a run game. I think they were third in the league in rushing, to where that provides some real stability for them as an organization, for Baker, that offense, the whole thing. So it was fun to watch, and they always played pretty good defense. I mean, they're middle of the road, but I think it's just that run game coming on and being very, very good most weeks, most game weeks that gave them the real opportunity. But I really liked them a lot, and I felt like they were going to beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh started out really rough with Pouncey snap over Roethlisberger's head, and they never could recover. And I got excited about it because, you know, I was a Brown, and I know how hard they've worked through the years to get to the playoffs. So it was a hump that they needed to get over, and they did it, man. I was proud of them.
I was very, very excited for the whole organization, and it's crazy to think now the Steelers are going to be good, the Ravens are going to be good, the Browns are going to be good, and your boys coming back, Joe. I mean, this is going to be an amazing division to watch, at least for the next few years. I'm super excited to see what they're doing. I know you're a busy man. You got to dip out. I had a whole bunch of other stuff, but real quick, I know I didn't put it down. Thoughts on Josh Allen, man? This guy, I believe. Do you believe this guy looks good, man?
I'm a believer. I think they might pull this thing off, and that's because, you know, Mahomes, and they're the greatest show on earth, like the greatest show on turf was with Kurt Warner and the Marshall Faulkner. I mean, what they do offensively in Kansas City is unbelievable. Andy Reid, the whole deal. They're the full package. But when I saw Mahomes get stunned last week with the concussion stuff, I was like, you know, if he's not at 100%, he's at 90%. They played a lot of close games. Buffalo's no joke. Stephon Diggs gives them just an amazing addition this year to that offense. And Josh Allen, his completion percentage went through the roof. He's throwing the ball over the yard. He's got as good an arm as Mahomes. He might not see the field as well as Mahomes and have that kind of fearless vision, or not fearless vision, but that unique, unbelievable vision that Mahomes has. I think Josh Allen is tough as he's tough as a pine knot. I mean, the guy's unbelievable, and he's ready for games like this. And so he's showcased it all year. It's going to be fun to watch in the Super Bowl, and Buffalo's got to go and face Brady again. They've been facing him in New England for all these years and hadn't had much success with him. I'd love to see Buffalo have to go face Brady again in a different uniform.
Yeah, that would be intense. I'd be quietly rooting for the Bills because you can't go to 5 and lose all 5, bro. That'd be crazy.
That'd be tough.
Well, I know you got the boys and all that stuff. You looking dope in the Nike sweater? You looking all yoked and stuff?
Trying to stay in shape so I can run around with these 15-year-old kids. They had me in the gym last night till 10 o'clock playing hoops. I'm like, but you know what? I can hold my own. I had fun with them. No, they're awesome. And like I said, I always like doing this show with you. Let's do it again in several weeks.
Sir,
and
please.
For football season.
Yes,
man.
sir.
This is awesome.
Oh, man, Josh, thank you so much for being an awesome dude as always, man. Your character and I know this is not a word, but your gentlemanness is just unbelievable, bro. You're one of the coolest dudes I've ever talked to. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day, bro, and talking to me. We'll talk soon.
I appreciate it, D. Y'all have a good day, buddy.
Yes, sir. You take it easy, buddy.